Seconds. Welcome everybody back to the Three Stooges, Joe Davidson, Sacramento Bee, joined by the talented Georgeson of Gold Country Media, Chris Jackson of West Coast Preps. We like to talk about high school sports in California. It's the most populated state in America. We have 10 sections that make up the governing body. And we try to talk about the good things. The high school baseball playoffs start this week, softball playoffs start next week. We'll also touch on topics and issues, transfers, realignment, those kind of things. And we're going to jump right away. I'm going to talk to you, Jordan. You're working on a story about Truckee, which is in California, but for decades has played in Nevada because of logistics. Truckee's had a powerhouse state championship football team over the years, but there's news out of the media up there in Reno area that Truckee is maybe on the move. Where might they go? What's going on? And what have you found so far, Jordan?
So Truckee is going to be leaving the NIAA, which is Nevada's governing body of high school sports. And it sounds like they're making the move to the CIF. And a lot of people, like you say, Joe, they wonder, hey, why is Truckee even playing in Nevada in the first place? Well, the closest high school to Truckee right now is in the state of California is, I believe, Loyalton High School, which if I remember right, they play 8-man football. So the closest 11-man football team Truckee would play is Colfax, which is an hour away. And they're 30 minutes from Reno, where there's, 10 high schools in that area. So that's why Truckee is playing in Nevada, and getting a school bus over Donner Summit between November and April is dangerous. But with the situation right now, from what I've understood, the NIAA is making a rule that is banning trans athletes from competing, which goes against Truckee's school policy. And that's a whole lot other topic to unpack there. But in terms of just the athletics, this means Truckee is going to be joining the CIF now, or it's been reported Truckee's going to join the CIF. From what I've been told, they could be in the northern section. They could be in the Sac-Joaquin section. That's a little bit unclear, but it could mean a lot. I mean, Truckee is a school of, like I say, about 900 students, and they've been competitive in a lot of sports, and they've come down here in a lot of sports. I mean, if you look at their history just in football of teams they played Colfax 8 times in the last 20 years. They played Union Mine a few times, East Nicholas, Bret Hart, Winters. I mean, they're coming up against, some Bear River they played a few times, Sutter they've played a few times. And not only are they holding their own against a lot of these teams, they're beating a lot of these teams. So it would be a great addition for the area if they do go Sac-Joaquin. The logistics of it really kind of depends. If you could go northern section, you probably have farther travel. Or if they go Sac-Joaquin, there's the whole issue of Interstate 80 and how often it closes in the wintertime. But I mean, man, if they could figure it out, Truckee in a league with, Placer, Nevada Union, Yuba City, Roseville, that little area, it feels like a perfect fit. I mean, it would be great athletically. And I know the other big question too is Truckee typically fields one of the biggest ski and snowboard teams in the state of California. A lot of those athletes play other sports as well. And a big sport that a lot of them play is soccer. But in Nevada, soccer is either a fall or a spring sport, whereas in California, it is a winter sport. So that's something to keep an eye on is, does it hit your ski and snowboard team? And I mean, sounds crazy to report on ski and snowboarding, but in Truckee, it's a big deal up there because that's where all the resorts are. So that'll be an interesting one to follow. But I mean, this could have big implications because I would argue in a lot of sports, Truckee could come in this section and be a contender right away.
Well, and it's going to be interesting as I talk to you, Chris Jackson, on thoughts. Truckee has won 14 state championships in Nevada, a powerhouse, repeated in 22, 23. So that's been a formidable program. Great points, Jordan, about how the football program has played. Why do we always talk football? Well, that's the most popular sport. Hello. That's not breaking news. It also brings in the most revenue, the most visibility. So anytime we talk about realignment, we talked about, remember, Sutter Huskies going from the northern section to the Sac-Joaquin section a few years ago. We kept thinking, boy, their football team's going to fit right in. It has. Though Sutter's also quite good in all other sports, but it always starts with football. And it sounds ambitious as I talk to you, Chris Jackson. They'd like to get this started this fall. That's a short window for scheduling and all that. It may have to be a year later as all this is coming out, but they'll be interesting. Thoughts? What do you think, Chris? This will be interesting and to see what happens in the coming weeks and months.
Their tradition of football will boost whether it is the northern section, whether it is the Sac-Joaquin section. Even last year, look at what they did again. A huge resume. They beat Union Mine 42 to nothing. They beat St. Vincent de Paul by 22 points, a team that went on to crush Houston in the NorCal final and win a state title again that next week, right? So they're going to be a great addition. Everything I've heard about the atmosphere at Truckee is one of the best you'll see. So if you could get them into a league, let's say it is the FEL where there is the atmospheres like Placer or PVL with a 900 enrollment that fits in some of these leagues. When you look at the PVL, you've got Lincoln most recently by the Sac-Joaquin sections list 1,201 students. You've got some others at Oakmont at 1,370. You could look towards El Dorado, 1,237, which I know is a different league, but there's a lot of these schools in this area that where it could fit right in that atmosphere, that track record, that history, you would have to think would be a great resume booster for all these schools. Now, does it happen this year? I don't know the logistics of that. It's already hard enough to schedule games. Do you just have to drop out of a non-league game all of a sudden, and then that affects that other team too, right? Then they've got to scramble again within weeks to find that 10th opponent if they can. I think it might
Yeah.
have to be a year-long wait, but I would love to see them selfishly for us join the Sac-Joaquin sections where we can see these Truckee at Placer games, or heck, maybe we all get lucky enough and we get a trip to Truckee for a Friday night or a trip to North Lake Tahoe. I know their high school is one of these schools also leaving the NIAA because of that ban on transgender athletes. So, as reporters, I would love to make those trips. I think it's also a great fit, but the logistics of it, just in the span of what is it, May 7th, we're in the section playoffs for baseball. That seems like a daunting task to figure out by the time, heck, even summer ball starts in the next month and a half.
Yeah, no, and the Reno Gazette Journalist had some stuff on it. Some of the TV stations up in the Reno area had it. The Reno Gazette Journal story that's online now mentioned that they might be a good fit Truckee in the Sac-Joaquin Section 4, and we're not sure what that meant. Might have been a little confusion. And the reporter listed sections, Sac-Joaquin Section schools that were actually from the northern section. So there's still a little confusion on exactly what's going on, and that's going to be interesting. But already parents are up in arms. We're in a society where people complain enough already, and so they'll complain about travel here or this or that or something. But um, Truckee has got such great tradition in football. They'll figure it out. The governing bodies will work. The Sac-Joaquin section, the northern section, the CIF. They're always listening to schools that want to join, move around. But I'm not sure if I've ever seen it on this short of a window. So we'll see. But we're going to touch baseball here really hard here. But first, we're going to talk about softball. The Sac-Joaquin section baseball playoffs start this week. Softball starts next week. Destiny Christian, formerly Capital Christian, powerhouse this season. You both have seen Destiny Christian this season taking on monster programs, but did not play Oak Ridge of El Dorado Hills. That was scheduled for last week or this week, no longer on the schedule. The Destiny Christian people are upset. They think that they have said in so many words, not wanting to put names on it, that they feel like Oak Ridge pulled out, didn't want to get beat by a smaller school, didn't want to strike out a bunch of times against Tua, who's on her way to another fantastic season, one of the best players in America. Not sure if you guys have heard anything. That was a non-league game, so not urgent. Apparently, Oak Ridge was expressing want to get a little rest before the playoffs, fatigue, understandable. I have not heard back from either school officially, but kind of a bummer. They're not going to play each other in the playoffs anyways because they're different divisions. But wouldn't that have been fun? And you guys just saw Del Oro take on Destiny Christian in a non-league game. So thoughts on that, Jordan? I'll go with you first.
I know this type of thing happens across the board in baseball and softball. When you get these rainouts, teams scramble to get these last games in, especially looking back and thinking, hey, this could be a big impact on playoff seeding. And a lot of times these games get canceled. There's a few different reasons. A lot of times schools say, hey, we're trying to save arms for the postseason. There's times where schools say we don't want our kids playing 5 games in 6 days going into the playoffs. The schools that get canceled on sometimes say, oh, they're dodging us or avoiding us. I think both schools have valid points. Part of me is like, if it's on the schedule, play the game. But at the same time, I understand in a non-league game that isn't going to impact anything other than, max preps and regional rankings and stuff like that. I understand, not wanting to play it and save the arms, but it's unfortunate because, I mean, I think the people that lose the most in this outside of the players are the fans because that would be an incredible game to watch. Two of the region's best. It would be one that I'd have my eyes on from wherever I'm covering a playoff game that day. But it's a bummer. I'd love to see that matchup. We could possibly see it in NorCal regionals, depending how these brackets shake out. But I guess Oak Ridge, I understand from what we've been told is saving arms, kind of resting the players before the postseason. I understand that, but also understand that, hey, maybe if you do see Destiny Christian in a regional play, this might light a little fuel under their fire of these guys didn't want to play us, so let's go show them why they didn't want to play you. Um, it's a bummer. I'd love to see this game, but yeah, Chris, I guess over to you. You're more familiar with both of these teams and what you think of it.
It would have been a great matchup. I think there is a really strong chance that these teams do sue each other in NorCals, especially if they go into that NorCal D1 bracket. Because right now in our NorCal softball rankings, we've got Oak Ridge #3, Destiny Christian #5 in terms of all of Northern California. If you just rank alone, right, they do the ranking system when it comes to NorCal's regional CIF stuff. Right there alone, that matches up in terms of, heck, maybe at one point they meet each other. I would have loved to have seen this. Destiny Christian does have a gripe. You have that game on the schedule. I know that they struggle getting some teams to face them because of their prowess, how good they are. I know teams struggle to don't want to schedule a Folsom, a Grants, a Sutter football, right? That's the same thing it is here. I get that. And some teams actually have one pitcher pitch all year. Go to Pioneer, which shared a league title in the MEL for softball. Their pitcher, Gia Beebe's pitched every single inning this year. Oak Ridge had two pitchers previously, but Kennedy Freeland, the superstar sophomore, is out for the year with an injury. Ellison Schroeder, Santa Clara signee. Now, she does have an injury history in the past, so that could play a part of this too. She has an injury history in the past. Don't risk it, especially at this point of the year. Play it safe. Destiny Christian has two great arms, Jordan. We saw it alone, where it was Roxanne Sardo comes in a Folsom transfer, going to Purdue. She pitches a few innings, then you have Ayla Tua. Felt like Randy Johnson with the heat coming through, and she's a freaking LSU commit. She's the #1 player in America in her class, I think. And if she isn't, I think that should probably change, right? But they've got two arms right now. Oak Ridge doesn't, and with the injury history of just Ellison Schroeder in the past. Sam Toy is Oak Ridge's coach. She likes to play it safe, smart, kind of play the long game. She's a really great coach, right? I don't think she tries to duck anybody. If you look at their schedule every year, if they try to duck somebody, I don't think they'd be in the SFL first off. They wouldn't want to play these great teams in non-league. Some of it too is just play it safe by the kids, do right by the kids. I see why Destiny Christian would have a gripe about it. My thing is though, if you have a gripe, maybe just put a name to it or some words to it. Oak Ridge, they've got a legitimate reason for it too. If you have a starting pitcher that has an injury history, this game is late in the year. Who knows what's going on? Got to play it safe for your kids too.
I can understand that, and I think you guys just touched on something. I was in slight error. I said they would not play each other in the playoffs. They wouldn't play each other in the Sac-Joaquin section, but because of the competitive equity model, if you're good enough at no matter what division, you'll get moved up in division in the NorCals, and that could exactly be what happens. Let's say, just for the sake of argument, Oak Ridge wins the section championship again in Division One, and Destiny Christian, formerly Capital Christian, wins another there. Yeah, they could be in Division One, so there could be some of that there too. So we'll see, but it certainly was worth bringing up. Jordan, back to you, sir. So Sac-Joaquin Section Division One baseball playoffs start today. Mention a couple of teams in the Division One bracket that are worth looking at, whether they're Sierra Foothill League teams or maybe McClatchy or St. Mary's, and then I'll throw it to Chris to do the same and throw in some names, some trends, if they're repeat champs, a star player or two, but who to look for as the Division One playoffs start this week. All divisions start. Smaller divisions started yesterday, but Division One, just for people who don't know, that's the large enrollment. That's the big boys. So what do you think of there, Jordan?
This is as loaded of a bracket as they come. I mean, honestly, you could look at the top six, seven seeds in this bracket and see, a world that they can be playing into next week into the semis and making runs to the championship. I mean, St. Mary's and Rockland, both the top two seeds, played in the championship last year, played in the Boris Classic Championship a couple of weeks ago. And those are kind of the clear favorites here. But then, I mean, looking at some of these other ones, Franklin is a three seed. That is as scary of a team as they come. And, the big thing we talk about in the playoffs, especially with these first two rounds being single elimination, if you have an ace, you have a chance. And Franklin absolutely has an ace in Dylan Wood. Then you look at Davis as a four seed. I mean, Davis has been a little bit of I guess we can say a surprise to some teams this year, just how well they did first year in the SFL. They kind of sputtered a little bit towards the end of the season, but that's a scary four seed. And then Granite Bay, I mean, anytime you're coached by Pat Esposito, how do you not like your chances there? They've won three straight Division II titles. So, I'm not going to count out a team that is three-peated as section champions until they give me a reason to. They even looked down. Oak Ridge has taken on some of these top teams. They beat Rockland a couple of days ago. McClatchy, a scary team in there. And then even that 8-9 matchup of Lincoln Pleasant Grove. This is a loaded bracket, but I would say, I mean, Rockland, St. Mary's, and Franklin look like the teams to beat here. But if I had to pick a sleeper in this bracket, I would say don't sleep on Granite Bay or McClatchy.
Yeah, no, good stuff. I agree. And McClatchy is a seven seed. McClatchy will host at its sparkling new baseball diamond and digs there. Same question to you, Chris Jackson. Any teams that really just stand out in Division One? You saw St. Mary's. I think they're your number one team in baseball rankings for this section. Beat Rockland and the Boris, which is kind of a quasi Northern California championship. So, can the Rams back it up and win a section championship here for Stockton?
I think they can. With what they've done, the resume they've shown, they thought they had a legitimate chance to beat Corona in the really all Boris Classic Championship, which I guess you could call a quasi state championship, right? Because the North winner of the Boris plays the Southern winner. They played Corona, a team that's got two projected top 10 picks, three projected first rounders, and I think a fourth potentially going in the first round at one freaking high school. That's unbelievable. They're essentially a college team at this point, right? But they felt they had a chance in that game, if not for I want to say one error in that game, just kind of changed the outcome of that. But they've got the resume. They beat Rockland. They had that great Boris Classic. They won their league. The left side of their infield is unbelievable. Brady Ericard at shortstop is one of the best defensive shortstops in America. There's a first round projected infielder at Corona. This kid, that kid's an unbelievable hitter, but Brady Ericart might actually be a better defender. Is kind of just the word coming out of just different circles, how good he is there. Dax Hardcastle's a third baseman that just mashed, I think, 3 or 4 home runs at the Boris Classic. Mississippi State commit, but I would imagine with his arm, his bat, he's going to start getting some pro looks, especially next year as a senior. They've got unbelievable pitching staff where Nico Bavaro is a UCLA commit, I think under a 1 ERA. Tanner Grove's a Cal commit. A great hitter, a great pitcher. Jeremy Krause really had a big outing as well at the Boris Classic against Rockland there too in that championship game, and he's really kind of found his groove. St. Mary's is that top dog, just with the arms. They've got the talent. They're repeat champs. Everybody they've beaten. They're our number one team in NorCal right now. I think we have Rockland, I want to say, at number 3 in NorCal. So you never know. A one-game set, right? It's not going to be a 3-game series. Maybe just a one-game set. Rockland this time takes the cake. You never know what can happen in those situations. But St. Mary's is the favorite. I like the thought of McClatchy being a sleeper team, especially with a guy like Ari Silva on the mound, Camden Salisbury, those guys. But Turlock is a sneaky 10 seed too. Dutch Lawrence, Andrew Sevilla, they've both kind of been after the week guys for us recently in recent weeks, and they've both tossed gems, one hitters, heck, no nos, you name it. So Turlock baseball is a 10 seeds, another one that's got those arms. And if they win one game, they can get hot and get to that 3-game set and really, really make life difficult.
All right, Division Two, Sac-Joaquin Section baseball playoffs home openers today. Top-seeded Jesuit Marauders, forever in the Delta League, now in the Sierra Foothill League, fit in just fine, just like Davis. Both are championship contenders. I've known Joe Petone, the Jesuit coach, for more than 30 years. One of the great personalities, one of the good guys. He's a hugger. He's like a mayor. You go to a practice during the week, he might be wearing a retro 1980 Houston Astros uniform just for fun. So still rolling along at Jesuit. Jordan, I'm going to go back to you. We have some Placer County teams. Here's the Del Oro Golden Eagles, Wood Creek Timberwolves of Roseville, Whitney Wildcats of Placer County, also there, the number two seed. Jordan, size up a couple of teams. And first, tell us about the Del Oro baseball appeal, what the appeal was tied to. We touched on it last week, just updating people this week. And did they succeed? And what's their thinking now as we size up Division Two?
So I talked to Del Oro principal Nick Zerwas last week, was texting with him, keeping update on the appeal. He said that, they pled their case and they really tried to, show like we can prove this coach served his suspension. There was no competitive advantage gained. And I think that's the key point, no competitive advantage gained, anything like that. But the appeal was denied, and the section not only kept the 8 forfeits, but here's the ironic part, and I guess some could say the hypocritical part too. There was a clerical error on the section's end. There was a box left unchecked, and Del Oro actually forfeited 9 games instead of 8 games. They forgot to add one of the forfeits, which, I mean, when we're getting to that point, that's where, you know, beforehand we were talking about them saying, hey, this is what the appeal committee is for. But now you kind of wonder, like, what is the appeal committee for? Because at this point, what are we doing here? I mean, who's checking the section's errors when, they make mistakes? Mistakes are going to happen. I'm not saying, the section needs to be perfect. I'm just saying it seems a little hypocritical when we're denying appeals. Maybe even if you didn't, say you get all these wins back, maybe if you cut the forfeits in half or forfeited a home playoff game, like we said. But beside the point, I mean, Del Oro was 19-9 on the field, but their record says 10-18, and I love it. The night the appeal was denied, their head coach goes and tweets and says, 19-9, the best is yet to come, and he tagged the Sac-Joaquin section on Twitter. So if you want to know the mentality of Del Oro in this, I would say this is a revenge tour for them. They would like nothing more than to go be hanging the Sac-Joaquin section banner in their gym at the end of all this. They're a scary team. They were projected to be the 1 seed in this bracket. They're the 5, and if you're the 5 seed at 10-18 with all those forfeits, that shows what you've done on the field and what the section thinks of them. And there are humans on this committee. They took all that into account. Jesuit, a great team. Whitney playing their best baseball of the year right now. The 2 teams I want to focus on, I think, that are very scary in this bracket too, Elk Grove, another one scary, is the 12 and 13 seed. So the 12 seed playing against Del Oro is Bella Vista. Del Oro beat them in the last game of the regular season 3-0. Bella Vista is a scary 13 or a scary 12 seed as well. I mean, they've had a great baseball program there in years past. And if you look at some of the teams they played, they lost to Jesuit by 5, lost to Folsom by 1, beating Antelope. They took one from Rio. They took one from Intercom. They got swept by Christian Brothers in Wood Creek, but this team is battle tested. They beat Woodland Christian. They took 2 out of 3 from Vista. So, I mean, this is a Bella Vista team. I don't necessarily say I'm expecting them to go on a deep run, but I wouldn't be shocked if they end up pulling an upset. And then the game Chris is checking out today, I know he'll have a little more when we throw to him, but I think Tokay could be the scariest 13 seed I've ever seen. They're going up against number 4 Wood Creek today, but the big reason why is pitching and one prospect they have. Their top 3 starters all have a sub-3 ERA, which is massive, and are averaging around 1 strikeout an inning, which, I mean, if you can have that as a 13 seed, pitching already alone has you scary. But then Brock Sell, a senior at Tokay, is projected to be a first or second round pick in the MLB draft this year. And as when you have a prospect like that, it is hard to say that you're out of the running. So be on the lookout and don't be shocked if you see Tokay make a little bit of a run in these playoffs. And Chris, I know you can have some more on that.
Yeah, Brock Sell, a Stanford commit. Does he end up at Stanford, though, is the real question. He is Northern California's highest rated baseball draft prospect out of high school. I'm not saying out of college, but just out of high school since Henry Bolte of Palo Alto a couple of years ago, who I got the pleasure of covering in the Bay Area. And kind of the similarities are pretty striking and alarming, right? Henry Bolte, you look at it, got drafted by the A's. Now he's in Midland Double-A with the A's organization. He was the number 56 overall pick in that draft. Brock Sell, what's he tabbed by MLB.com? The number 57 overall player. He is done area code games, high school All-American game, so many things, and their stats are similar too. Henry Bolte is a senior, 443 average, 13 home runs, six doubles, two triples, 42 RBIs, 48 steals. Brock Sell, 489 average, 11 doubles, five triples, two home runs, 34 steals. It's pretty weird how similar a lot of their things are with the ranking, their statistics, everything else. When you've got a draft prospect on hand and you've got some great pitchers, especially like Buckley on their staff, you got to think Tokay's got a chance. But Wood Creek has also made the semifinals 2 years in a row. So who am I to say that Wood Creek can't do this? They've got Lucas Kahn's a great head coach there. They've got a great culture. They've obviously won their league again, right? They won the CVC once again. But Tokay is, Jordan, as you said best, they are one of the scarier 13 season when you've got a projected top 2 round pick in Major League Baseball out of high school. You've always got a chance.
No, that's good stuff, and just really cool. And could you imagine being a high school baseball player with a whole sea of radar guns every time you pitch, or scouts looking at you play shortstop, and you want to play in the bigs, and you're 17 years old, and your backdrop, it might be Stanford instead. That's pretty good living. But these guys put a lot of pressure on themselves. And speaking of pressure and handling it well, let's jump to Division 3. The Oakmont Vikings of Roseville are seeking another section championship, another Northern California championship under longtime terrific baseball coaching staff. And Paul Martinez, who's won section championships at other schools. That's the top seed in Division 3. The number 2 seed is West Park, the new school that continues to impress in all things athletic. The Panthers of Roseville. And right on down the line there, number 3 seeded Yuba City as well. Jordan, what thoughts on the Oakmont Vikings? Can they get beat? Are they looking at history here to win another championship? We've also seen over the years where a 16 seed can beat a number 1 seed. So, Coach Paul Martinez and the Oakmont Vikings are mindful of the opponents. And it's happened in Placer County before where a top seed gets bounced. That's been a few years, but I think you know where I'm going with this on this, Jordan.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was a year or two ago, or 2 years ago, Laguna Creek threw its ace against Wood Creek and ends up beating them. And I want to say Wood Creek was B ranked number 1, Max Preps number 1. Like they
Yes.
were a top team in the section
They
all around. And
nationally ranked at one point that year too.
they might have been. That was a loaded Wood Creek team. They had a Mississippi State committed shortstop. I mean, it was jaw-dropping when I thought it was a typo in Max Preps at first when I saw they lost that game. And you typically see some close games in these first rounds because if a team has an ace, but that one shocked me. I think Oakmont, they are definitely the favorites in this bracket. Again, they've won 2 straight section titles, but there's definitely some competition in this bracket. One that stands out to me, Central Catholic is a 5 seed. That is a scary 5 seed coming out of that Valley Oak League. That's a team that is going to be a force to be reckoned with. Christian Brothers always a strong program. Even that 8-9 matchup of Pioneer and Patterson, that's an interesting one. But the team that really stands out, the two that I think are scary, are Yuba City and West Park. Yuba City is a team that I've told some people when I've watched them a few times this year, and when I watch them play, they don't have anything that necessarily jumps out at me where I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a great team. But they always find ways to win. And to me, that's a mark of a good team that even if you don't necessarily pass that eye test, finding ways to win time and time again is hard to do. And good teams find ways to win. Someone said great teams find ways to win games. Good teams find ways to win games that they should. And Yuba City has found ways to win games that they shouldn't win at times. And that's impressed me. And then West Park, I mean, if you want to look at this resume, they lost their opener at Del Oro, but then they beat Downey 13-3. They beat Oakmont back in February 7-3. They beat Wood Creek. They beat Yuba City. They beat Rockland. They split with McClatchy. They ended up sweeping Antelope, who's in this division. They go in one of the spring break tournaments. I believe it was down in Fresno. They go 3-1 down there against these teams. I mean, they swept Cordova, another team that was in the postseason. And sorry, it looks like they actually dropped 2 out of 3 to McClatchy. There was a makeup game in there that I missed. But West Park as a 2 seed is as scary as they come. And I mean, looking at that resume, I know Oakmont has a better record, but 22-6 with some of those wins. I mean, West Park probably had a case for the number 1 seed as well. And how do you not give it to the 2-time defending section champ? But I think we could be looking at an all Roseville championship game with this and see Oakmont and West Park be playing at Memorial Day weekend down in Sac City.
What a great
About
city
that.
baseball that is. It's pretty unbelievable. West Park did beat Oakmont earlier this year, right? 7-3. So Oakmont still gets the one, but they've played great baseball. Haven't lost in what, weeks? They didn't even lose a league game, I believe. They swept Lincoln, they swept Bear River. Oakmont, though, you got to think they're the favorite with Paul Martinez, one of the great coaches you could say of all time in NorCal, one of the great guys, a pitching staff that is absolutely loaded. Trevor Wilson, the ace, Sacramento State commit. You've got Aiden Dringerberg, who is a great third baseman, a great hitter, a great pitcher. I think under a 1.5 ERA, and Jalen Patterson, Hawaii Pacific commit. I think a 1.06 ERA, somewhere around there. Three pitchers like that. There's no other team in that division that has arms, that kind of depth, anything like that. And the way Oakmont moves runners, it's surgical, right? Get a runner on base, move them over, advance them, score a run. Same thing, rinse and repeat. And those three arms and a coach like Paul Martinez, I don't think I can pick against those guys.
No, they're good. And coaching matters, man. We talk about this in this show. And sure, coaching matters in the professional level and the college level, but it especially matters at the high school level. And you talk about great players like Paul Martinez, and he played at La Sierra High School in the San Juan Unified School District, a school that closed some 40 years ago. Section champion at Del Campo, section champion at Oakmont, section champion at San Juan when he was a young coach. I was a young reporter. Just so smooth and cool. And Bo Ogles is the star quarterback. He's a star player in baseball, so they got a lot of multi-sporting guys. And there's pressure. They're supposed to win all those games. And just a reminder that the Sac-Joaquin section has a best two out of three in the semifinals. And some people say, oh, that's ridiculous and all that. It's the only section in California that has anything like this, as far as I've seen over the years. Forever, there was called what was Suicide Saturday, where for a single elimination on the first day of the playoffs, and they were all held at one site, which was so cool. You could watch 4 or 5 games. Then it got jiggled around, and I think it's still cool that there still is a best of three series because baseball kind of dictates that. But you could also see why it might have been eliminated. It was discussed to be eliminated, the 3 game series, because these NorCal rounds are pretty brief, but there is no state finals in California for baseball and softball, and I don't know if that'll ever happen. The season's just become so long. You're going to have NorCal championships and state championships well after graduation, senior trips, all that. This will be, I think, the fourth year for NorCal regionals. Hey, we'll take it while we can get it, because it's a cool deal, and so not bad. All right, so really quick, let's go to Division Four. Sac-Joaquin Section baseball playoffs. The top seed is Bradshaw Christian, the small school that continues to find a way. Has won section championships, won NorCal championships, a lot of multi-sport athletes. 12 Bridges, Casa Roble, Del Campo, Center, Sutter, Nevada Union, Roseville, Bayer, Placer, Sierra, East Union, Vanden, Oakdale, Los Banos, Oakdale, the number 2 seed. Jordan, anybody stand out here in this division? Maybe the Roseville Tigers or a dark horse. And here's 12 Bridges and Casa Roble playing again. They've done it in football for a section championship a couple years ago. Chris Horner and the Casa Roble Rams won that. They played each other in the NorCal basketball finals just a couple of months ago. And Casa Roble beat 12 Bridges. I think these teams have faced off in section baseball championships like last season. Casa Roble won. I think 12 Bridges about had enough of the Casa Roble Rams of Orangevale, unless they'd like to bounce them out. So we'll see what happens there. Jordan, size it up a little bit.
Yeah, these two schools have been on a collision course with each other, it seems like in everything. I think the section or the state just has a sense of humor at this point of the section because how could you not want to see them play? The Bradshaw Christian looks like the favorites in this bracket to me. I know Oakdale is scary as a 2 seed. A couple I want to give a shout out to Roseville last year, a team that was outside looking in because there was no at-large bids for the postseason. They finished lower than third in their league, but they were 17-9 or something like that. I know Eli Garcia wants to lead those Tigers to a section championship, especially feeling like that was a team that I thought could have actually won Division Three or would have been a dark horse in D3 last year, and they didn't even make it. That's a scary team. Sutter at the 4. Never count out the Huskies. They've been a loaded team. And then another scary one that I see is at the 11 seed Sierra. They're going to visit Placer tonight. Yeah, they're 8-17, but if you look at what this team has done, they have a win over a Tokay team that we mentioned earlier. They took 2 out of 3 from Central Catholic this year. They have a win over Manteca. They took one from East Union. I mean, they played Patterson. They've played Mountain House. They're playing, Linden. These teams that are going, they're typically good baseball schools. At 8-17, yeah, some people might be saying, what are they doing in the playoffs? That's a whole nother situation. We have these at-large bids now, but I'll tell you this, that is a team that is going to be battle tested, and I wouldn't be shocked to see them throw a couple punches in these postseason. Del Campo, I think it's a scary 5 seed as well. The FBL is a very good league. I mean, if you want to know how good it is, 12 Bridges is hosting, Del Campo is hosting, Roseville is hosting, and Placer is hosting. That's 4 teams, and Yuba City is the 3 seed and division up. So the FBL is a great league this year. That's going to be a competitive one. But I have a hard time picking against Bradshaw Christian and just what they've accomplished there. And if anyone wants to talk about a great baseball field, go check out a game at Bradshaw Christian. Don't lean up on the fence. You might lean up where the wasp nests are, but outside that, beautiful field, beautiful facility, and a great place to watch a game.
Chris Jackson, thoughts?
You got to kind of ride with the defending champions, what they've done, defending NorCal champs. Now, the thing for them is David Weiser, their Stanford commit, has thrown 1 inning in the last 2 months, and that inning was against Rosemont on May 1st. Now, Bradshaw Corson has still got elite arms, elite bats, right? If you look at let's look at their team stats real quick in terms of pitching. Team ERA of 1.10. You've got Tidwell 0.45, Alex Krosno 0.78. Ethan Quach just recently had a no-hitter. He's 6-0 on the mound. They've they've got the arms, but Oakdale healthy. They've got a lot of guys. They've got one pitcher on the man, Landon Shoot, who's a junior, about 6'4", 6'5". Pro scouts looking at him, a Georgia commit with a .90 ERA. You've got a Fresno State commit and Jordan Haver. You've got Aiden Ardis, who's 3-0 with a 1.33 ERA. That is a 2 seed that a lot of people think is going to make a run. They also got to share the Valley Oak League title. They've won 7 straight, recently beat Houston. They won a series over Patterson. They've got a win over Manteca. They've got a win over Central Catholic in there. A team that's also beaten Turlock, who is Division One, a 10 seed. They shut them out 5-0 earlier this year. But Oakdale is one of those teams I've been looking at for a while. They've got a tremendous junior class. They've got a great senior class. I think that's a team that's got some of the best chemistry I've probably seen covering high school baseball in quite some time. That's a community that's a one-horse town.
Yeah.
Stir up each other. They want to be Oakdale Mustangs. You go into a deli, you go into a restaurant, it's all Oakdale Mustangs. And I think this team, that chemistry they've got, that talent, the coaching of Joey Machado and his brother Eddie Machado is their pitching coach. They're one of the hottest teams in the section, and got to ride the hot arms and a pitching staff that goes 3, 4, 5 deep in terms of just Division One guys.
No, that's good stuff. And if we take a peek in Division 5, those playoffs started yesterday. Lincoln Zebras of Landon Plout and all of his clout, top seed, rolled Mesa Verde, the number 2 seed in Division 5 is Houston Huskies, also great in football. Number 3 seed is Woodland. So really good there, as always. And all these brackets are, I didn't think I'd get through that segment without sneezing. All of these brackets are on the section site, the CIFSJS.org. Chris Jackson's all over it on social media. So is Jordan Georgeson. Excellent stuff, worth a read, worth a follow online. We've got stuff as well at Sacramento Bee as we ramp up the spring coverage and just good stuff, guys. And we'll jump in next week and we'll start talking about softball because that's where these girls can play. We've got Del Oro softball, state ranked number 1 by our good friends from Cal High Sports. First time for that program. Really impressive. What a great year. We've talked about them and their home runs and their 1-2 pitching power staff and all those good things. I'm going to throw a cool little side note here. BJ Armstrong of the Chicago Bulls front office is now with the Sacramento Kings in the front office, and the potential new general manager for the Chicago Bulls is their assistant general manager named J.J. Polk of Jesuit basketball fame from the early 1990s. So really cool to see that. He's been an assistant general manager with the Bulls for 4 or 5 years. We have a few guys over the years have done good things in front offices and pro sports. So that's That's really cool. And speaking of Jesuit, I got some sad news to report that national news last week with John Elway, the Hall of Fame quarterback great, and he was at a golf tournament with his great friend Jeff Sperbeck, pride of Jesuit High School, 1980 graduate, was a quarterback at Sacramento City College, became a player agent for many years, very close friends with Elway. He fell off the back end of the cart, hits his head, traumatic brain injury. They kept him alive long enough to harvest his organs. He doesn't survive it. He's 62 years old. People are so viciously mean on social media. Oh, that's going to hurt Elway's handicap. Shut the hell up, people. Somebody died here. It's just the insensitivity of that. I knew Jeff Sperbrick for years. His first client as an agent was Ronnie Lott of the 49ers. He was John Elway's agent since the early 90s. They're business partners. They own a winery together. Rest in peace to a good man there. And I last spoke to Jeff Sperbeck 4 years ago when he called me just grief stricken. His best friend, Greg Knapp, who played quarterback at Sacramento State in the 80s, became a Sac State assistant coach, longtime NFL assistant coach, was Peyton Manning's quarterback coach when the Denver Broncos won Super Bowl 50 at Levi Stadium in Santa Clara. I was there, got to run into Greg Knapp, and the agent, Jeff Sperbeck, called me 4 years ago saying that he gotten involved in a car accident. He was riding his bike in San Ramon in the greater Bay Area when a distracted teenager on his cell phone, both hands on the wheel, allegedly, and he crashes into uh, Greg Knapp, who falls and hits his head. He doesn't survive it. So this family has been rocked in the football community in general as we bid a fond farewell, and also did an obituary last week on another beloved figure. Mel Fonts coached high school football, the Pig Bowl, local colleges for nearly 40 years in Sacramento, died at 90, good long life. He's connected to the Spurbeck family. So Dick Spurbeck was this famed high school football coach, baseball coach in the 60s and 70s at Christian Brothers, and he gave Mel Fonts his first coaching job. If the Fonts name sounds familiar, he's the oldest brother of Wayne Fonts, the Detroit Lions head coach in the 1990s with Barry Sanders. There were two other brothers that coached in the NFL. Mel Fonts decided, I want to just coach locally, local high schools, local colleges, local charity Pig Bowl. And he played football at Sacramento State because he's from the Canton, Ohio, of all great places in Massachusetts. So we lost some good people in recent days, and we're going to continue to honor them by talking about them here and also report about them. So some tough news there. But I think next week we're going to try to have another Jesuit graduate who is an incredible inspirational story. Um, Jeff Paler, who Jordan, I'm going to throw to you. You reached out to him. You played rugby against him. He's a powerhouse inspiration because he got paralyzed in a rugby match several years ago, and he's paralyzed where he doesn't have use of his legs. But boy, it didn't dampen his spirit. I've done stories on this guy. We're going to try to get him on this podcast. But really quick, Jordan, your thoughts of him. You've played rugby. It can be a rewarding sport, but it can be pretty darn hard on your body. And Paler does not have any regrets, and his attitude is championship material if we've ever seen it.
Yeah, Robert Paler, Jesuit grad, like you said, broke, I believe it was a broken neck or back during the national championship game against Arkansas State in 2017. Him and we didn't really know each other too well in high school, but we played against each other. And then in college at Cal, he played with a few of my friends as well. And I actually had someone that I was kind of, I guess, acquaintances with that was on the field for Arkansas State at the time of his injury as well. So our paths have crossed a lot. He's turned his life around into becoming a motivational speaker. I know a lot of times when people like this have something tragic like this happen, they let it define them and kind of engulf them. And he's almost kind of found a way to, throw it right back. And he just launched a book. He's becoming a motivational speaker. He really is making the most of a really crappy hand that he got dealt. And It's really inspiring to see. Reach out to him. We're going to try to get him on an upcoming episode. Even if we can't make this week work, hopefully we can get him on soon because he really would be a great person to talk to. And, not just about the sports side of it, but just life in general. And I think a big part and what a lot of, the high schoolers we talk about are going through is going from that rough transition to all of a sudden, you're a Division 1 athlete or you're a great athlete to I'm not playing anymore. And, it's something that I know a lot of high school and college athletes struggle with is you go from, being an athlete kind of defines you for years and years, and you feel like it defines you. And all of a sudden, you graduate high school one day or college one day, or when you're 40 years old and you retire from the big leagues, one day you're not an athlete anymore. And how a lot of these athletes cope with that, because I know that was a hard thing for him to cope with, a hard thing for a lot of these athletes to cope with. So hopefully we're able to get him on because great story, and just really an inspirational story and player.
Yeah, it's just really cool and just an incredible attitude. I did a story on him a few years ago, and I was so impressed there. And he said, "I'm going to continue to fight the good fight." I remember in 1987, there was a football player at Valley High School, the Elk Grove Unified School District, and on a kickoff return, Brandon Cranford, and he at Casimas River College, and he got blown up on a kickoff return and paralyzed from the neck down. Did a story on him 10 years later, then one 20 years later after the injury. And his attitude was amazing. He got married, he got into counseling. He said it's all about how you handle it. So, some of these guys they have every reason to be angry for their body no longer working because of an injury in a game that they love so much. But man, can we always be inspired by just the resolve and grit of the player, who's always going to be a player, and because he's going to compete and all that. So fantastic stuff. We could go on all day. Guys, I appreciate you guys. We'll see you out there in the ball yard real quick. We appreciate everybody. Reach out if you want to check us out on what we do on social media. We're easy to find. Just type our names in for Jordan Georgeson and Chris Jackson. I am Joe Davidson, the Sacramento Bee. We'll see everybody soon. Great to be doing this.